This is the story of the Peacock Room, currently on display at the Smithsonian. It all began in 1876 in the London home of Frederick Leyland, who was a wealthy shipowner from Liverpool, England. Leyland was wanting to remodel an existing room within his home, of which to store and display his large collection of Qing Dynasty porcelain, which was prominently blue and white. Leyland commissioned Thomas Jekyll, a prominent architect, to complete the remodel. The remodel was reaching its final stages when Jekyll asked the opinions of James McNeill Whistler, an artist, on finishing colors for the room to highlight the blue and white porcelain being displayed. Whistler was the artist that painted La Princesa, the centerpiece of the room. Whistler offered to lend a hand and add intricate detailing to the walls. Leyland gave Whistler permission to make minor alterations to the room. With the room almost complete, Leyland returned to Liverpool for business. At this point, everything was about to turn south. Shortly after Leyland departed, and the commission almost being complete, Jekyll fell ill and had to step away from completing the remodel. This left Leyland and Whistler as the remaining two, with no mediator in their case. Whistler took it into his own hands to complete the remaining work of the commission. He decided that the room needed more revisions than initially agreed upon. Therefore, he began adding what he believed was necessary and a must for the room. Whistler made these revisions without approval from Leyland and informed Leyland of the changes in a letter. Whistler wrote Leyland and said that the room was really alive with beauty, brilliant and gorgeous, while at the same time delicate and refined to the last degree. I assure you, you can have no more idea of the ensemble and its perfection gathered from what you last saw on the walls than you could have of a complete opera, judging from a third finger exercise. Whistler urged Leyland to remain in Liverpool until every detail was perfect. He decorated the entire ceiling with imitation gold leaf and decorative peacock feathers painted directly on it. Each element he added to the room became more and more expensive and extensive. One of the additions was a painted, expensive leather wall covered with a coat of shimmering Prussian blue, an act of what might be called creative destruction. While finishing the room, Whistler entertained guests at the Leyland residence with no permission of Frederick Leyland himself. This, along with a disagreement on pay, led to a dispute between Whistler and Leyland. Leyland, shocked by the changes, fired Whistler from the job, and they had a bitter feud over payment for the work. He did not believe that Whistler was deserving of the initial amount of pay that was agreed upon. Rather, he wrote, "I do not think you should have involved me in such a large expenditure without previously telling me of it." Leyland ultimately agreed to half the amount, but insulted Whistler by paying for his work in pounds, which was the currency of trade. The typical form of payment to artists and professionals was in guineas. The pound also worth slightly less than a guinea, making the amount much less than initially anticipated. Leyland made sure to get the last laugh in this quarrel. At this point, Whistler believed he was caught up in the wrongdoing of Leyland and had one final addition in mind that would make the room complete. At some point in the midst of their issues, Whistler was able to gain access to the room, and while there, he painted two fighting peacocks. The peacocks were seen confronting each other on the wall across from La Princesa. He depicted one peacock in a way that mimicked the ruffled shirts that Leyland often wore. The other peacock was painted with a silver crest feather that was to resemble the lock of white hair that curled about Whistler's forehead, and scattered at the feet of both peacocks were silver shillings, representing the sum that Leyland refused to pay. If the detail wasn't enough to make it clear what the painting was depicting, Whistler titled the mural, "Art and Money, or the Story of the Room." Who has the last laugh now? After Leyland's death, Charles Lang bought, disassembled, and transported the entire room in 1904 to a specially built annex to his house in Detroit in 27 crates. The room was set up how Whistler wanted and envisioned it to be, true to the artist, but was later changed to how Freer imagined it. After Freer's death in 1919, the room was transported to Washington, D.C. and installed in the new Freer Gallery of Art. Having been moved multiple times, the room was unstable. Because of its condition, the room was restored between 1947 and 1950, and has been moved very little since. Currently, the Peacock Room is on display at the Smithsonian, and every month, on the third Thursday, the shutters are open so the general public can experience the revelation of the pottery that was once experienced back when the room was first decorated.